Good to be back with you on the second edition of the India Development Debate right here on ET Now. The battle of words over the Rafale fighter jet deal refuses to die down. Opening a new front of sorts, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley today launched a direct attack on Rahul Gandhi for putting national security at risk. Jaitley also attacked the Congress chief for his misinformation campaign, which he alleged is aimed at delaying India's defence procurements. In retaliation, the Congress chief challenged the government to set up a joint parliamentary committee to look into the deal without naming Anil Ambani directly. Rahul also hit out at Prime Minister's friendships with a clutch of industrialists who may have made money from the mega deal. The junior Ambani, however, refuted the opposition's charges, stating that everything was above board on Rafale. The fresh row over Rafale is the second topic of discussion and debate right here on the India Development Debate this evening. I've got a special panel joining us right here. Vineet Goenka, former co-convener of the IT cell of the BJP, Sanjay Jha, spokesperson of the Congress Party, Colonel Ajay Shukla, senior journalist, strategic affairs, and of course Maroof Raza, consultant and strategic affairs expert as well. Thank you very, very much each one of you for joining us. And because this seems to be a new fresh frontier between Rahul Gandhi and Arun Jaitley and the kind of comments that he's made, it's only fair that I start with you, Sanjay Jha. Mr. Jaitley accuses UPA of compromising national security by first delaying procurement and now making what he calls baseless allegations. Will you deny the fact that you could not execute the deal in 12 years? And in fact, he alleges that you wanted to re-examine the entire deal in 2012. Did you inordinately delay the deal?
Well, you know, I read Mr. Jaitley's blog and I even briefly heard snatches of his interview. It was just the usual, lot of hyperbole and rhetoric, no substance at all. I think what Mr. Jaitley did not answer is the fundamental questions the Congress party is asking. Number one, where is the secrecy clause that tells you that you can't disclose to us why the aircraft per price has gone up by 300%? He made some typical, you know, cheap political comments, and Mr. Rahul Gandhi said 520, 530, but this is rubbish. I mean, what is the truth? The price goes up by 300%. Mr. Jaitley, by the way, gives an argument. It could be exchange rate fluctuations. Supriya, I tweeted on that the exchange rate fluctuations, if you take 2007, is 25%. That's a euro against the rupee. If you take 2012, it's actually just 3%. So I really don't know what Mr. Jaitley has really written in his blog. I don't think he was well prepared for it. My second point, and the fundamental point, is why is it that suddenly, overnight, violating the defense procurement policy or procedure, you suddenly found Hindustan Aeronautics dumped and a crony capitalist getting a deal, the same crony capitalist, by the way, whose equity capital was 5 lakhs. The company set up just 2 weeks before Mr. Modi's celebrated visit to France. No defense expertise. Fourth, and this is very interesting, a foreign currency default in payments, which I think is taken very seriously by international companies. I can't imagine Dassault Aviation not taking that into account. Fifth, 45,000 crore in debt to public sector banks in India. Sixth, one last point, maybe Ajay will know better. In a defense offset, you actually need to have the local company having a majority control and contributing to the economy. This was a UPA rule. Here, 49% remains with Dassault. So whatever 1,30,000 crores that the private guy was going to make, 49% would go back to Dassault.
You made your opening comments.
Daylight, I would say, the great Rafale robbery.
There are largely three parts to this. Okay, Sanjay Jha, I get that. There are largely 3 parts to this entire discussion. One is on pricing, the other is on whether procedures were followed, was CCS taken into confidence, and then of course the offset contract. You've largely touched upon all of that. I will first get Vineet Goenka to react to some of the charges that you're making, to allegations put forward by Mr. Jaitley, and then move to the 2 experts. Vineet Goenka.
Can you just repeat it, because I've just joined?
No, I'm just saying, so Sanjay Jha, I asked a question to Sanjay Jha that Mr. Jaitley has accused the UPA of compromising national security, delaying the deal and now raising allegations. He in retort and in defense says that where is the secrecy clause? He is saying that why was the offset clause given to a company that had no bearing in defense? He is talking about exchange rate fluctuations, which if you compare to 2012 are just 3% euro versus the rupee. What is your defense? Vineet Goenka.
So probably Sanjay ji is not, probably Sanjay ji and Congress party and Rahul ji have not read through it. The entire deal, which is 2007 versus 2016, if you see, not only there is a saving of 9% because there was an inflation clause, there was a currency conversion clause which was been taken care of. Now these two clauses, if you put together, the deal is 9% cheaper than the earlier deal. Number two, if you say the 30% set off, which is the 30% business to be given to Indian entities, does not have a mention of which entity, what business. It's the OEM who gives the business to Indian entities which are private and public. Now, no government, whether it is NDA government or previous governments, had business to dictate which company to give business. It's a deal between that company plus Indian entities. The deal is simple. 30% has to be given. Whom they give, what they give is not the deal. So I don't know what he's talking about. So as far as I understand what the finance minister has explained, this is far better than what what UPA has done. Rather, UPA had compromised national security. We all know that there was a need of medium-term multi-usage aircrafts, which they did not sign through. They sat on that for 10 long years and did not finalize the deal. But this, I think, is a better deal, and whatever blames they are putting are purely motivated.
Okay. I'll go across to Maruf Raza on this. And Maruf, you know, the other question is that there is always this conversation about why can't pricing be told. I'm given to understand, and you know, now there is reported data on this, that there is a secret clause which was kicked in. Opposition leaders could have been briefed on pricing because the contract provides for it. Something like this was done in the past for Sukhoi. Why could this not be done? It will put the entire controversy to rest for once and for all.
You see, there are 3 or 4 issues with regard to this deal which keep coming up. The first is, Supriya, as you've asked, is about pricing. You see, when you buy a particular military platform, the basic price of the platform is one thing which can go out in the public domain. But what you need to have add-ons there, and India has added in its wish list now, a number of items which were not there when it was initially being talked about or negotiated, such as helmet-mounted sights, such as some other missile systems which don't have more or less their equal in any other military inventory. You know, missiles which will help the aircraft target very pinpointedly enemy targets as far as 300 to 500 kilometers away. So there is these things that is added on. Now, why is it not told? The question has to be understood in the light of the fact that the moment you tell the price, any smart adversary knows what all you're going to have fitted onto that platform, and therefore how it can be put to use, and therefore they will buy weapon systems and platforms to counter it. So whatever you buy, before you put it into operational use, becomes a sort of negotiable military weapons platform which the enemy can counter quite easily. So you've put billions of dollars and it's gone up in smoke because of the need for transparency or the desire for transparency. There is no need beyond a point, and this is not just in the case of this government. It has generally been the rule in India and elsewhere in the world that these things are not disclosed beyond a point. The second thing is that the aircraft manufacturer itself has sold those aircrafts to the French government, which has in turn sold it to the government of India.
Right.
And the French government and the government of India have agreed they don't want to talk about the pricing, because if it is done, then the French are not able to drive a hard bargain with a third or fourth or fifth country they wish to sell the same aircraft and military platform to.
Fair point.
So please understand that. I don't see the need for transparency to go to such absurd lengths to compromise what our capabilities are going to be. Tomorrow, let's have everything in the laundry list laid out, that what missiles, what air defense systems, what ships, what submarines, what tanks we have.
Maruf, you make an important point there. Maruf,
so that when we go into war, we are neutralized.
No, Maruf, you make an important point there. I will take your point forward with Ajay Shukla. Maruf makes this point that the add-ons make the aircraft arrive at a price at which it has. The weaponry that has been added, even according to Mr. Jaitley, is the price for the Rafale platform. You know, and he's justified that it would have been 20% more of what the UP had negotiated for the jets. I mean, are we here to believe that the Congress-led UPA was willing to buy bare-bone aircraft or aircraft with very less on-mount weaponry?
That's completely absurd. This whole business of not wanting to reveal the details of India-specific enhancements suffers from two major infirmities in the argument. The first infirmity of the argument is that the joint statement that was put out by President Hollande and Prime Minister Modi in Paris in April 2015 specifically mentions two things: that the aircraft will be sold at a more favorable price than the 2007 contract, and secondly, that the aircraft will be supplied in the same configuration. So anyone who's now trying to get up and manufacture this ex post facto argument that it's being supplied in a higher configuration with many more deadly weapons and secrets to it is actually in violation of the joint statement signed between our Prime Minister and the President of France, which committed to the same configuration. Now we are also assuming, when we say that it's being supplied in a higher configuration, that the Air Force that made the parameters of the 2007 deal was willing to accept a substandard aircraft without helmet mounted display sights, without radar warning receivers. That is absurd. All these so-called India-specific enhancements were a part of that deal, as is recognized by the fact that the joint statement between Modi and Hollande specifically mentions that. As for this business of trading charges of anti-nationalism and sort of coming in the way of the national interest, two can play at that game, and as you can see, two are playing at that game. The Congress and the other joint opposition parties are charging the NDA with actually endangering national security. They are very credibly arguing that you have reduced the deal from 126 Rafale to just 36 Rafale. You are hamstringing the Indian Air Force. You are not filling the Indian Air Force squadrons. And secondly, and even more worryingly, the entire Make in India component of the deal, with just 108 of those aircraft were supposed to be manufactured in India by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, according to the 2007 contract.
Right.
All of that is out of the window. Now we are just getting 36 aircraft, and those are being manufactured in France. So this is a very dangerous game, I see, where the two opposition parties sort of going at each other hammer and tongs, and truth becomes the first casualty.
Absolutely. Just hold that thought there, Ajay Shukla, because you and Maruf have put some very important points on the table. I will just quickly finish with pricing and then come to you, Vineet Goenka. Sanjay Jha, one of the points that Arun Jaitley has made in his interview and his blog prior to that is that he accuses Rahul Gandhi of being irresponsible, of quoting different prices. He says 700 crore was quoted in Delhi and Karnataka in April and May, then it came down to 520, then 540, then it went up to 560. In Hyderabad, that was 526. Should the Congress president, who's decided to make this a political issue, perhaps be a little more careful of the price that he's quoting, because he's calling this a scam? He can't be quoting different figures on this.
Well, you know, Supriya, let me tell you, I think that was a typical Arun Jaitley response. You know, I mean, picking up one or two divergent numbers from Mr. Rahul Gandhi's comment. But what he's not able to answer is whether you take one number or the other number is 285 or 300 or 315% more, which is absolutely irrational economics. There is no justification for it. To add to what Ajay already mentioned, let me tell you that before Narendra Modi went to France, Jaishankar, India's foreign secretary, made a statement that the deal between, and this was, by the way, jointly stated also by the HAL and by Dassault Aviation, that their joint offsets manufacturing was just waiting to be inked. The moment Narendra Modi lands there, the entire deal is obliterated. Years of protracted negotiation were dumped. Did Narendra Modi even consult anybody before doing that? I think, let me tell you the fundamental point. There is crony capitalism, there is business corruption
we'll come to that point later,
and there is no escaping for Narendra Modi.
Sanjay Jha, hold that thought there. Hold that thought there. I'm going to go across to Vineet Goenka. We'll discuss the crony capitalism allegation that you keep making making in just a while. But Vineet Goenka, one of the points that Ajay Shukla made is valid, that you've reduced 126 aircraft to just 36. So don't talk about compromising national security. And the other point is that a lot of people are raising is, was process followed? I mean, Mr. Jaitley asserts that CCS did clear the deal, but is he hiding behind technicalities of when this approval came? Did this come on the 10th of April or before that? When in 2015, when Mr. Modi announced it in Paris, did it come on the 13th of May 2015 when Defence Acquisition Council approved it? Or did it come before 23rd of September 2016 when the deal was finally executed? So one is curious to know, when did CCS approve this deal?
Okay, so there are 6 questions which have been asked till now, and let me answer each of them.
Very quickly, sir, I've got very little time on the show.
I think everybody knows that the Indian Air Force asked. Well, let me at least start first.
Sure.
So, post-Kargil, there was Indian Air Force desired to increase their capabilities. It was UPA which tried this study, got the tenders. It was the L1. There were 2 service providers, 2 providers who were there finalized. L1 was with Rafale. I really don't know why they took this from 2004 till this date, till 2014. What was their compulsions? Whether there was some collateral consideration which did not allow them to finalize the deal. That is the question which Congress has to answer. We took the decision in the interest of the country because it was necessary, and we all know our neighbors have capabilities and we don't have the capabilities. The people were sitting on heights of the mountains. They could have been attacked by our air forces had we had this capability then. So that was the necessary A. Number B, if you see the price negotiation committee, the contract negotiation committee, both spent more than 14 months negotiating the price. I am repeating, price negotiating committee and the contract negotiating committee, and finally the cabinet committee for defense also was consulted. So this allegation is totally baseless, and they are talking like a kindergarten students. I really don't know why they are not trying to grow up and talk to them on what is legitimate ground. Number 3, if you see, it is a G2G contract, it's a government to the government contract, and the capabilities have to be increased immediately without waiting for our PSUs to acquire the skill and the capability and then deliver it.
No,
and whereas our PSUs right now are equipped with work which they require. So probably 36 aircrafts were finalized because we need it immediately. And you see the contract through, then the others can be manufactured here. Third, the interest of the country as far as the OEM goes. Let me just complete. I think that was the best 30% which has been secured.
Okay, I'm sorry, Vineet Goenka, I'll have to come in there. I've just got 4.5 minutes left on the show. I want to touch upon the part which has become extremely controversial, and that's the question of private industrialists being favored. Maruf Raza, I'll come to you. Mr. Jaitley asserts and has clarified that there is no role for the government according to the policy that was laid down by the UPA itself. He further states that 36 Rafale aircraft with the India adaptation will be sent to India with no manufacturing here. So there is an admission that nothing is going to be made in India. But however, does that settle the debate on Reliance getting that contract, on Reliance getting that offset contract? Because many people say the company was incorporated 2 weeks before, it does not have prior experience and all of that. But has he set the record straight by saying the government doesn't have a role in it? Maruf?
Is that for me?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. See, there are a couple of issues here. The first thing is that, you know, when you do a government-to-government deal, which is called the FMS route, then the governments are buying the equipment directly from another government, and the company that manufactures this product, in this case Dassault, has to let the government sell it to the government of India, and the company which is the manufacturer has to look for an offset partner in India in this case. Now apparently, and this is through the horse's mouth, I've got it, having spoken to people in the know, that A, there was no comfort level by the manufacturer exhibited towards HAL, because HAL, despite having been in business for decades, is not capable of manufacturing a top-of-the-line, state-of-the-art fighter aircrafts like Rafale. The second thing was that the Air Force brass had made it known to the government that if we don't get 36, which is basically 2 squadrons, in flyby condition, we are not going to be in a position a few years down the line even to have the kind of capabilities that a country like Bangladesh has. So quite clearly, they had to take a decision. And Mr. Antony could have also taken the government-to-government route in the time of the UPA, as he did with a number of other pieces of equipment that we bought from the US, making the US the biggest defense supplier to India in the last 3 to 4 years. But he chose to deter on this because this was coming up once again and again with a lot of controversy when there were various negotiations involved. And therefore, this decision, when it's a government-to-government deal, I don't know if there is any government-to-government deal which really has much room for middlemen to play a role in or
Maruf,
for financial manipulation. So
Maruf,
I think that allegation is questionable.
Okay, that allegation is questionable, but the question also is that there is another side to that allegation. I asked you one side of the allegation. Let me ask Ajay Shukla the other side. Given the possibility of that offset clause, that contract going to state-owned HAL that was in talks previously with the SAW, shouldn't the government have thrown its weight behind it for the offset clause? Shouldn't the government have proactively pushed the case for HAL? I mean, that's the other way to look at this entire equation, is it not?
Supriya, this offsets issue needs to be understood in two respects, first of all. First of all, offsets are an instrument for the buyer country to extract the maximum that they can, whether by way of technology or manufacture or purchased products from the buyer. To turn around and say that we have no role in this is to actually surrender an instrument where you could do a lot of good to India by extracting technology from Dassault, by extracting manufacture and so on. You're surrendering that. Secondly, it is factually incorrect to say that the government has no role in choosing the offsets partner. Clause 9 of the Defence Offsets Guidelines specifically states that the defense minister will sign off on all such contracts. So it has not happened yet, but the defense minister will have to sign off on these on this contract between Rafale and the Ambani group. Thirdly, you could have faulted Dassault for choosing anyone. But there are people who have some experience in aerospace manufacture in this country. There are companies that are supplying aerospace components all over the world, companies like Dynamatic Technology, HAL, Russell, Texas, and so on. It would have made some logical sense to encourage Dassault to enter a partnership with those companies. But when you say no, we have no role in this business, and it just so happens that Dassault has entered a partnership with a manufacturer who is known to be very close to the ruling party, it does not make for a great deal of confidence. And to then turn around and say that we have no role in this is a hard sell for the government.
Okay, I think that
they're going to have, this is going to be a big vulnerability.
Okay, let me just take it quickly across to the politicians in 30 seconds each. In a response to Mr. Jaitley's interview and blog, Rahul Gandhi has tweeted asking that should there not be a joint parliamentary committee to sort this out. Mr. Vineet Goenka, there was a big clamour and you finally got one on the 2G scam when the UPA was in power. Does this finally settle the debate if we have a JPC on Rafale? Are you going to be willing for this?
Now, that is the decision which the government has to take, and I can't comment here right now. But I would like to say, basically, Congress and the people who want to delay this deal or counter the rationals out of that are people who are not trying to understand this is a G2G deal which cannot have any kind of middleman. A. B. There was urgency of procuring 36 ready-made aircrafts, and the details cannot come out because these are national security things. Third, HAL or any other PSUs will get their shares once the need is been fulfilled. I think they have to come up with the kindergarten arguments which they try to do, act in the interest of the country. Number two, these are the same people who have proofs of the funds been transferred to Karathurachi, which was near to the families of then ruling government, which procured Bofors. So these are the people who are trying to draw parallels.
All right.
So I would like to rather request them that
I
get up.
I don't endorse your kindergarten statement that you've used twice in the show, but I will still pose a question to Sanjay Jha. And Sanjay Jha, you're making a big deal of this Rafale deal. It will eventually go to CAG. Let the matter be settled by India's top auditor. What is wrong with that?
Supriya, this involves your money, my money, the people who are watching the program, their money. This is not Narendra Modi's private treasury that he can travel abroad and strike any contractual agreement that suits him. It's not because he has a certain affinity for an industrial group cannot decide India's destiny. And there is a simple math, Supriya. 126 is greater than 36. And I think that nails the argument. India's national security has been threatened, and the fundamental point still remains unanswered by the BJP. Why is the price 3 times higher? Why in the secrecy clause did Nirmala Sitharaman suddenly do a dramatic U-turn? Why has Hindustan Aeronautics been denied an opportunity?
No. Sanjay Jha, you've made those points before. I'm sorry, I'm running out of time on the show. I'm sorry, you've made those points before. Those are valid questions that you're asking. There are also some very valid points that Mr. Jaitley has posed back to the Congress party. It is perhaps a travesty of our times that national security issues like the Rafale deal have become a point of political bickering, a point of political contention on both sides. But the reality is that transparency will be good in a deal like this. The contract itself involves the government briefing the opposition leaders. Why has that clause not been used either by the Treasury benches, and why have the opposition leaders not insisted on that? Perhaps politics is at play even in Rafale. Thank you very, very much, Maruf Raza, Ajay Shukla, Sanjay Jha and Vineet Goenka for joining us on this edition of the India Development Debate. We take a quick breather. Up next, Stop 10 at 10.